For the L sit to shoulder stand today. Now this is a great exercise by itself. You could even break down the components, and just the L sit by itself or the shoulder stand by itself is just a great standalone movement that I'd recommend you train. The L sit to shoulder stand full movement is a good prerequisite to have before you go into things like forward rolls on the rings, and also understanding counterbalance and positioning and control for the press to handstand as well. Okay, let's jump in. So let's first look at the movements. So we could break it down into 3 sections. We have the L sit, we have the shoulder stand, and we have the transition between the two. So let's just first look at the L sit position. So most people will know this one already. You can go between 2 boxes, 2 P-bars, lots of different things. You can practice this anywhere. You can even do it on the floor. You can have a couple of yoga blocks between your hands. And basically we're just going to go into a tuck position and see if we can hold in a front support. So what that means is that I'm going to bring the shoulders back and down, push the hands away from me, and hold the legs ideally up in a tuck position so the thighs are parallel to the floor. Now you can make this harder by bringing the knees closer towards the chest and or extending the legs. Now obviously this movement done on the rings is much harder because of the instability, but if you start off on something stable, see what you've got there for time, and then progress slowly to the harder variations up on the rings. Okay, and then the shoulder stand. So the shoulder stand is very much like a crow. It's that counterbalance between the shoulders and the hips, and just finding a point of balance. A good prerequisite if you don't have a shoulder stand or you want to understand the counterbalance between the hips and the shoulders is to do a squat to crow. You will look at the people in these positions and you'll see that their torso is at an angle. It's not upright because the shoulders in front of the hands, which means the legs will be behind to counterbalance that weight and energy forwards. Then we're going to go up onto the P-bars or some blocks or some steps, and then it's just tilting the shoulders down, lifting the hips up, and then see if you can hold with tippy toes touching the floor. If that feels very comfortable, you can then start to bring a heel towards the butt. Just be careful when you do this because obviously you're taking weight up and over, and the shoulders then will could come lower and the hips could come higher, and you could go back splat over. So no back splatting. If you are worried about that, you can have a spot. So just get someone to put their hand close to your low back and push you back down if you go over, or do it close to the wall. Just make sure you know where the wall is and don't fall into it. Progressions of the shoulder stand then is to start to open up. So in a tight tuck position, we slowly open up to a flat back position. You could then go to straddle, or you could go straight into that full position. And don't just think of it as 2 positions, so it's not just the tuck and the straight position, there's all the in-between, so the open and closing of the legs. So once we have a shoulder stand that we can hold for time, you should be able to hold for like 10 to 30 seconds in the shoulder stand, 10 to 30 seconds in the L sit. We can then start to put those 2 things together. So probably the easiest way for most people to think about this is to start in the shoulder stand position, keep a tight tuck, so keep the knees close to the chest, and then start to lower the hips as you raise the shoulders. You'll need to lean forward slightly as you do this, and then we'll bring the knees all the way, keeping the knees at the chest as we rotate all the way around into that L sit position, nice and slow and controlled. So it's a push extension of the arms while we seesaw, so have that counterbalance between the hips and the shoulders as we move around in that position. So I would work on doing a shoulder stand hold, a slow transition, an L sit hold. Once you have that, it's going the same thing in reverse. Now, if you are very strong, you'll probably be able to muscle this and get through it and bypass some of the parts. What we want to be able to do is hold a conversation while we do it. That shows we have control and we're actually using that seesaw, that counterbalance to help us get through this. So initiation of that L sit is you want to be pushing the hands away from you, lifting the knees very hard towards the chest, and then leaning forwards, rotating round. So the hips are coming up and the shoulders are coming down, keeping that tight tuck, finishing in the shoulder stand. Then we can work on doing repetitions of L sit to shoulder stand to L sit, and keep going between the 2. If you can get like 5 reps of this, then you're showing good control. Obviously then we can start to make it harder by extending the legs in the L sit, extending the legs in the shoulder stand, We can progress to having more of an open body as we do the transition, which is much harder and needs a lot more shifting forwards of the shoulders if the legs shift backwards. So again, that counterbalance, that seesaw is very important to understand that. We can make it harder by going onto the rings. So the same thing. We can change what our hands are on. So we could go onto a step, a P-bars, yoga blocks. You could even do it on the floor if you've got the flexibility and the compression to get through. Okay, let us know if you have any questions. Stick them down in the comments or send us a message. And we'll speak to you next time.